Mr. Pink from the blog Modern Synthesist, and in this video we're going to be showing you how to sculpt stitches and sutures. You can do this mostly with flesh, but you can also apply it for doing fabric type stuff. Enjoy!
The ongoing installments of messed up plasticine tool sculpting theatre. Here's how to do stitch together flesh. So, lest you think that I'm some kind of sculpting expert, I literally figured this out last night. And now I'm doing a tutorial on it because it's just that easy. Okay, so we got our crappy plasticine. So just for reference sake, you probably can't see it because it's really little, but that's the thing that I did last night. So horrendous sculpting flat stitched flesh. It looks more gross than the Games Workshop version of it right here and right here. Looks like it's actually pulling away, and if those sutures pop, man, gross stuff's gonna come out. So let's do that. Again, we're doing this macro mode, not micro miniature level mode. So my tools are not ideal for this because they're made to sculpt tiny little things and not giant things like plasticine. So I'm gonna have to fudge it. For example, when I was doing this, I've been thinking about this for a while and I finally tried it. I literally used cut up pieces of coffee stir stick. I don't know if this is a Canadian, North American thing. They're probably everywhere. Weird brown stir sticks. If you stamp them, they look like that, which is kind of cool. Oh, now I've got plasticine on my stir stick. So if you stamp them, it looks like that. But the cool thing is that I looked at these and I'm just like, that's just a little straw. So if I take one of those and I cut it in half along here, take one of these, and I take it and I just kind of like pinch it out to make it long. I figure that could be a pretty good thing to stamp out some stitches on someone who's been messed up and sewn back together. So yeah, that's what I did. Kind of pinched it. In micro mode, it looks like this. Oh, look at that. And then I messed with it. But in macro mode, I'm going to be using this off the giant ass Games Workshop I paint lots of tanks brush, which I don't do. So that'll probably work. All right. So you get your flat piece of green stuff. You apply it to the model where you want to have the sutures. It's a really good way to fill space. That's how I started doing on that grotesque. I just like, oh man, there's a strap here that I don't want to be a strap anymore. I'm going to try sculpting sutures. It worked out. So you should just try stuff. Okay, flat green stuff. What I did the first time is that I did the cut and then I did the sutures across it, which was a pain in the ass because I had this cut through my sutures. So instead, what I learned the second time I did it, see, practice makes perfect, is that I started with my suture stamping tool. Again, this is not going to be perfect because it's made for a brush. And I just kind of went to town. Like I went, okay, there's going to be a suture there, there's going to be a suture like that, and then like this. They don't have to line up because you'll see why. Like that. Oh, these are not skinny enough. That. This should kind of line up, I guess. Okay, and then like that. Okay, let's do some more down here. Okay, these are rough, but we'll see. So now you've got your sutures. So what you do is you go in and you fix these up. Again, easy to say at this level. I'll show you it in a Greenstuff level as well. But this is huge, right? Like anyone could sculpt this. This is so easy. If you want to practice that way, you can do that. I don't know what order to do this in because literally I figured out how to do it last night. So I'm going to cut the gap. So this is like the gross. Oh, that one was fucked up. Apparently you can't do sutures in any direction you like. Oh, let's make it a little more like this. So here's the wound that the sutures are holding together. Oh, it's so grotesque. Oh, it's bending all over the place. What did this guy encounter? What kind of crazy ass chain fist cut him up? There's your gap, cutting through there, and going out there. So just kind of cut it between the sutures. Yeah, I don't know how that skin's gonna hold together with no sutures, but whatever. Gap, gap, there. So you've got your gross gash through the model. And then you've got your sutures, but they just look like bubbles. And when I stamp them out with the coffee thing, they look like bubbles as well. So that's not that surprising. So what you gotta do, in fact, why don't we just like get right in on, that's as far as shadows. What you gotta do is you gotta make them look more like, well, like sutures. So what I did on the smaller model is that I used this. So this is like a clay tool that I just picked up at the arts and crafts store. Not terribly expensive. Actually, as I said, we're still figuring this out. Let's make the flesh look more puckered before we go in there and fix the sutures. So what I did for this is that I used the silicone brush and I kind of did stuff like this. It doesn't have to be that many. I just did it in random places. Make the flesh look messed up and like it's being pulled by the sutures. Something I realized by accident is that putting it in underneath like this kind of looks good, because then it looks like it's really getting pulled by that suture. So yeah, just kind of stretched flesh, random silicone brushness. When you're using a silicone brush, it's very forgiving, so you don't have to worry about blending it back in too much. It kind of takes care of itself. Just want to break up like perfect circles around where the sutures went in. So stretchy flesh. Another thing I did, I don't know if it really is that good, but I was like, oh, sutures, that's going to be a hole. So I took a ball burnisher and I kind of like poked down at the ends. It did get bally at this end, and you got to fix it, but see how it curves there? It's kind of nice. So you can do that, poke them in at the ends of the sutures. So it really looks like it's gripping something. Poke, poke, poke. Poke, poke, poke. Okay. Oh, this one's fucked up. And then on the suture end, it's okay, but on the other end, you want to kind of clean those up by stretching them out. Again, just learned how to do this. Maybe it's not the best way, but it worked pretty good for me, so it'll probably work well for you. So stretch these out, clean those up so they don't look like little circles anymore. We'll dirty them up, I guess. Dirty, dirty, dirty. In here you can see that this is kind of getting kind of fake skinny, so you gotta go in there and clean it up, make it dirtier, look less like something we sculpted. Okay. Same thing here, make it look more like pulled skin. Okay, so that's dirtied up, and then what you want to do is you want to straighten out the sutures. So anything that's straight and pokey, you can try it with the knife tool. For me, it was a little small to do it, but you want to make them less like ovals, more like straight lines of string, or hide, or whatever the hell Haemonculus uses to stitch people up. So yeah, see how they're getting more flat on the sides? Careful here, I'm just being rough. When I was doing it last night, this didn't work because it was too big. I used this because I could kind of like poke in them and use the edge of it to kind of make them straight. Like that. It's going to dirty up the space between them, but don't worry about that. You're going to go back and fix it, kind of like we did on the spinal columns. So you just kind of make them straight. You make them curved a little bit too. Again, I'll just turn them all. Okay. Go. More straight, and then that helps you kind of like poke in here as well. Cross like that. This one up. Okay, so it's starting to look slightly more suture-y. These are real small in real life. They're very big right now. You can kind of do something like this to make them look like string. You need a small enough sculpting tool. Kind of make it look like binding. Again, this is plasticine. It's a lot more malleable than Greenstuff or Epoxy Sculpt would be, so don't worry about that. It's not going to get as messed up as this is. So I'm just kind of making the string patterns across them. These will be super small, like you might get one in when you're sculpting to scale. Okay, put those across. And then you got to go back in and clean up that gap. And it's way similar to what we did with the spines. You want to kind of poke in underneath and kind of raise up the stitches. If you can, I could do it with this, and again, once you're using Greenstuff, you'll have elasticity on your side, so you can kind of pull the stitches up. I'll just do this side and I'll flip them. Okay, kind of continue that gap right to the stitch. Just clean it up. is getting all messed up. Oh, this is so messed up. I hate plasticine. There's your gap. Oh, look, it's so grotesque. Goes in there, comes out here-ish. So yeah, get in, follow these gaps, make sure they go right to the suture, and then get in underneath, like this. Kind of lift them up a little bit. So it looks like that gash goes right underneath, like a bridge. Think of it like a bridge, and you're putting like the little river of busted up grotesque underneath it. By using something like this. This is a good tool for it, it's the right size. Other tools that could work, if you have a patented Hydra sculpting tool that is made out of such funny pieces of steel, you can do that as well, but it's a little big. Or you can use a very, very small ball elevated ball burnisher tool, but maybe it will not fit. So this pokey thing that you get, it's a real like clay sculpting section of any art store. Should be. Oh god, what's happening here? It's gotten too messy. That is the gash, goes in there. Yes, I just said gash. People not in North America are probably laughing their bags off. That goes in there. Again, this wouldn't be so messed up if it wasn't plasticine. Or maybe it would be so messed up, but you wouldn't be able to tell because it's so small. So yeah, just kind of make sure that you know where your scar is and get it in underneath the sutures. It looks gross here. It'll look better in real life. I promise. And if it doesn't, buy me a plane ticket, I'll come sculpt it for you. Okay, just get it underneath. Same here, underneath. So yeah, that looks really rough, but I swear that if you do this yourself on scale, it'll look a lot better. This is just what I did, and it turned out pretty okay. Now I'm just cleaning up the sutures, making sure they're good and kind of squared off, and not rounded. Following the lines of them. Oh god, this guy's had a heck of a day. Yeah. Just kind of, and then if you have if you want to, you can kind of go along the edge of it and make it more kind of scarry, flesh pulling away from gap. Again, very rough. Let's do it in micro and see how it turns out.
So now that you've seen the kind of macro version of that, in that I did it really big, here I'm going to show you that it is possible in the micro version using the actual tools that I use for sculpting sutures. So you can see I've got here that split coffee stir stick thing. And then I've kind of like flattened it out a bit, and I use that to stamp in the suture line. So this is kind of, this is where you plan out how twisty you want your suture line to go. You can just make it straight across, but it's much easier to stamp the stitches first and then go in and cut the line that goes in under them. So for cutting that line, you can use any one of these tools, a ball burnisher, you can use that pointy clay tool, or you can use a knife tool. So what did this time I used the clay thing. This thing, yeah, it's real pokey, and it's really good for poking in under the sutures after you've made this line. So right now I'm just kind of poking a line between the sutures to show the previous gash that's been stitched up here, but not touching the sutures themselves, just poking the line under. And then what I'm going to do is, this is a really good tool for it, is going back and kind of poking in underneath them, kind of like making bridges out of them. Think of that cut as being like a river. Oh, I kind of fucked up there. And think about the cut as being a river underneath. Bridges that are the sutures. Okay, I sped this up because you've kind of seen it before, and also I didn't really realize how shitty my focus was. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm going back and I'm kind of poking in the places where the sutures are supposed to tie into flesh, because before it didn't really look like there was holes there that you'd stitch through. So again, this is a very good tool for doing that, but you could do this with a pin, anything that's pokey like that. So I'm just going down to the end of each suture and poking into the base of it to kind of make a hole where it's punched through the flesh. So again, you've seen all of this in the big version, so it's not perfect here, but I just want to show you that it can be done in small if you prefer to see it in small, and it's not going to be perfect with like focus and that kind of stuff, because I find it really hard to work on something without moving it around. So right now, I think that was me starting to clean up the cut underneath. It's really tough with the knife tool because it's so big, so I kind of go to a ball burnisher. And again, I'm making the gash look a little bigger and rougher. You don't have to do this if you're happy with how tiny it is. You could probably take that pokey tool and clean it up that way. So now what I'm going to do is kind of make the flesh pucker in, kind of as if it's stretching. Yeah, this is useful. I guess you could apply this for fabric as well as leather. Again, I'm speeding up here to get through, so you can just see I'm using the knife tool to kind of like pucker the flesh in. So it really looks like it's trying to pull away, and the stitches are holding it together. Let's see what else we got left. Oh geez, sorry, I'm doing this on the fly. And yeah, so I think I'm just going back and cleaning up here. And then using the silicone brush tool, I'm just smoothing out those puckered flesh marks so they don't look quite so angular, so they can look a little more fleshy. Again, it's to your taste. You can leave them kind of like straight lines and angular. You don't have to do this part. But it also, you can see that I made kind of like crevices there so that it looks like the places where the stitches are higher than the rest of the flesh around them. Just be careful when you're doing this that you don't press too close to that line and screw it up, because you don't want to fuse the green stuff together on the kind of cut that you're stitching around. Yeah, so just kind of smoothing out some flesh. Let's see. Oh, and then you could go around and just kind of like clean up the rest of the flesh around it with the silicone brush tool, of course, to make it smooth. And again, with each stage, the details from the previous stage kind of get a little mished, so you can kind of go in and clean it up again. That's what I'm doing here. But you could do this ad nauseum. So at some point, you just got to stop and be like, okay, it's good. This is probably good enough, but I'm just cleaning it up anyway. And yeah, that's getting just about done. Same thing, you can go in and clean up the cut in between if you're not happy with it, if it's got too like stuck together. So yeah, that's how to sculpt stitches. Hope you enjoyed it. In our next video in the How to Sculpt series, we're going to be moving on to one of my favorite things, sculpting Tyranid and Dark Eldar armor. So that's a non-powered armor. So you can look forward to that next time.
It's going to dirty up your crack between them, but oh god, that sounds gross.